Hello students, this is your chemistry tutor Suji George, who is from Cochin, and I am here to continue with our studies about electrolysis. It is a chapter you have to study in ICSE syllabus, and let's go into it. So in the last class we have studied about what electrolysis, the word electrolysis means. Electricity, and lysis means to split or to break down. Okay, so something has been happening here, and electricity is used to break down chemical substances. Okay, that is what is happening here, and the uses are: it is used for electroplating. Then we studied it is used for refining metals, and also electrolysis of water to produce hydrogen, which is an important fuel, and along with that oxygen. Okay, then we studied about the electrolytic cell. Electrolytic cell is the cell inside which electrolytic cell is inside which, yes, electrolysis happen. So there we had seen a battery, or battery is also called an electrochemical cell. In an electrochemical cell, what will happen? Chemical or a chemical reaction is happening, and that makes, or that is used to generate electricity. And what about the case of electrolytic cell? It is used, yes, electricity there is used to produce, electricity is used to produce or perform a chemical reaction. Okay, and the setup is such that there is a source, and that source at one end is connected to a road, and another end is also connected to a road, and those roads are called electrodes. That also we learned. We will be learning more about electrodes in this class. Okay, and there are two types of electrodes. If that electrode actively participate in the chemical reactions that are happening inside the electrolytic cell, they are called active electrodes. Mostly metals like copper, zinc, gold, all are used as those kind of electrodes. And then there are inert electrodes, that electrodes which are not, as we have learned in the last class, electrodes which does not take part in any reaction. It is there just for passing electricity into the electrolyte. Inert electrodes, and example are carbon rods. Okay, or it's made up of graphite. Okay, then again there are two type of electrodes based on the charge, or based on the terminal of the battery with which it is attached to, and that is, or we can say, where depend upon the reaction that takes place inside it. It can be a reduction reaction or oxidation reaction, that also we learned. So in the last class actually we have learned so many terminology which is related to an electrolytic cell. So those are electrodes, electrolytes, and then we learned about anode, cathode, anion, cation, and then these are ions in general, and then redox reaction, the reactions that takes place, redox reactions. The reaction that takes place in an electrolytic cell is one is reduction and one is oxidation. And also about dissociation of electrolytes, and we heard a name called ionization, right? Okay, so this is the setup. There is an anode and a cathode. Each and every student have this difficulty, or we really get panic when we think about which electrode is connected to which side of the battery. So you don't need to be panic. So from this word itself, we can see that positive is anode. This is the positive side of the electrochemical battery that is here, and this is the negative side. So positive side will be the anode, and the negative side, NiC, negative, is cathode. So you don't need to be panic, or you don't need to worry about which side is which one. So there are two electrodes which is it is based on the reaction that is happening, and also it is based on the terminal of the battery to which it is attached to. So you don't need to be panic. So positive is anode and negative is cathode. So here it is cathode. And what is the main function of this electrolyte? Electrode? Electrode is simply there. In some cases, it is the path with which the electricity enters the electrolyte. So basically, these rods are dipped or immersed inside the chemical substance that we are taking. Right? Clear? So you don't need to get panicked about that. Again, about electrolyte. So is that clear? You should not be panicked during the examination or get worried about which terminal is which one. You have positive is anode, negative is cathode. Okay, so electrolyte that is being used, they have ions already in it. Electrolytes are chemical substances that conduct electricity when it is at its aqueous or state. That means when it is dissolved in water or in its molten state. That is, it means it is in a melted form. Okay. So these electrolytes, you have also studied that electrolytes are strong. There are strong electrolytes. There are weak electrolytes, mostly acids, bases, and salts are the substances which conduct electricity. And sugar, pure water, distilled water, and honey, then kerosene, even petrol and diesel. These are substances that do not conduct electricity. Okay, so why does this not conduct electricity? Because they don't have ions in their aqueous solution or any other type of mixture. Okay, so that was about electrolytes, electrodes. Is that clear? Okay, now anions and cations are the two types of ions that we have already learned. So in a chemical compound, for example, if I am taking NaCl, there will be a positive metal part, and a non-metallic part. This metallic part has a tendency to lose, they will give out their electrons so that it will attain a stable configuration as that of the, that is why they are losing their electrons. The metal parts, usually they are electropositive electrons, atoms, and they lose electrons to get a positive charge. And these non-metals, usually they will be adding electrons so that they will attain the octet, or they will get a inertias configurations. So if NaCl is taken as an example, in aqueous solution, will be what dissociated into Na positive and Cl minus ions. Okay? And what happens here? And this positive ion is called as the cation. I will give this T, I will write this T as a plus sign. So positive is always the cation with the T as a plus sign, and negative obviously then other one is the anion. So there is a cation which is positive, and there is an anion which is negative. So tell me, what happens if there is a positive Na positive ion, Na positive ion, Cl minus negative ion? What will be the tendency of these ions? Where will it move? So positive, we know that unlike charges will get attracted. That is, the positive ion will be always moving to the negative cathode, and the negative ion chlorine will always be moving to the anion. Or we can simply say that what will happen there? Cation, which is positive, will be moving towards the cathode. Okay, and anion will be moving towards the anode. Is that also clear? So you should not be panicked. Panic means what? Positive is the anode, and negative side of the battery is connected to the cathode. And in an electrolyte, there will be a positive electron and a negative electron. Usually the tendency of a positive ion is to move towards the negative terminal of the battery, and the tendency of the negative ion will be to move towards the positive side. So here we can say that, what can we say? That cations will move towards the cathode, anions will move towards the anode. And okay. So now Na positive is near the anode and Cl minus is near the cathode. What will they do over there? Something happens there. One ion will lose its electrons and will be deposited at one electrode, and another will gain its electron and will get deposited at the other electrode. So what happens here? Basically, you can see that there is gain of electrons at one position, and there will be losing of electrons at the other electrode. Losing of electrons from the ions at the other electrode. Okay, let me make it one clear once more. Okay, so you know that there are two electrodes, two electrodes, anode and cathode. The anion will be moving to the anode, cation will be moving to the cathode. Cathode is negative. What happens at cathode? Cathode is negative terminal. Na positive ion which moves towards the cathode. What will it do? It will accept or gain electrons and become Na metal, sodium atom. So, Na positive ion which moves towards the negative terminal cathode, the cation that is moving to the cathode, will gain an electron, take an electron from that terminal, and it becomes an atom. A sodium metal is formed. So, what do you know? Have you heard about this gaining of electrons and losing of electrons? So, what does gaining of electron means? Yes, it is reduction, right? So, here what happens is at the negative cathode, reduction will happen. NCR, you can use any mnemonics or anything, and you can learn it. In the negative cathode, reduction happens. What actually happens? The positive ion, when it reaches the negative, it gains its electron. It doesn't have one electron. It is less, one electron less, right? So it gains its electron, and gaining of electrons we have already learned in the first chapter that it is reduction. So what will happen at the anode then? At the anode, the negative ion, so it has got an extra ion, right? It loses its electron. So, at the positive anode, oxidation, losing of electron, we have studied. It is oxidation. Electron is lost and chlorine is formed. So, 2 chlorine ion, a chlorine gas is, a chlorine molecule is liberated at the anode if it is, the electrolyte is NaCl. So, is that clear to you? So, positive anode oxidation takes place at the positive PAO, 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 and NCR, MCR, it's like just saying like MCR, it is NCR, NCR, negative cathode reduction happens there, and then positive anode oxidation happens there. So, that is what happens in a reaction. Okay, let us see what is the difference between a cation and an anion. Okay, before that, let's see what is the exact difference between a cathode and an anode. Okay, now, so you have already studied, or according to panic, we know that cathode positive is the anode, anode and cathode. Difference between anode and cathode, it is, just remember about the panic you will going to have while learning this. So, positive terminal, anode is the electrode which is connected to the positive terminal of the battery, and cathode is which we connected to the negative terminal of the battery. Okay, and then the next anions moves towards the anode. Anodes are negative electrons. It always moves towards the anode. And what will happen there? Positive anode oxidation. Oxidation takes place at the anode. So when you are studying for the first time, it will be a little bit difficult, you'll find. Here what happens is anode is positive. This anion, while moving to anode, loses its electron, and losing of electron is called oxidation. So we can say that oxidation of anode takes place at the anode, or we can say that anode is the oxidizing electrode. Okay. And what about cathode? Cathode is connected to the negative terminal. I see panica, negative cathode. And here what happens? Cation moves towards the cathode. Cation is what? Positive ion. Positive ions does what? It gains electrons there. So reduction takes place at the cathode and yes, what happens? Cathode can be called as the reducing electrode. Okay, so those were the differences between a cathode and anode, and panic is the word that we use, and for knowing where the oxidation takes place, positive PaO oxidation and NC Panica NC negative cathode R reduction takes place. Okay. Now, so you know about the anion, cation, the cathode, anode and electrolytic cell, and when electricity is passed through the electrolytic cell, the already dissociated ions will be present in it, and the ions will, what will ions do? Ions will be carrying the or conduct helps in the conducting the electricity, and it will move to the corresponding anode and cathode, and redox reaction takes place in the electrolytic cell, forming the whichever electrolyte is taken, we will get to see that electrolyte will be split into its atom and another substance. Whatever it is, it will be splitting into it. So let's see what are the differences between the anion and the cation. So hope it is clear. It is fine. We will be describing it or explaining it again. So some of the words that you need to know is this panic and PaO PAO and NCR. This means positive anode, negative is the cathode, and the positive terminal oxidation takes place and negative terminal reduction takes place. Anion moves towards the anode, and cation, which is the positive, this T is very important, T, that shape, it is positive ion, moves towards the negative cathode. Here it gains an electron, here it loses an electron, and thus oxidation and reduction takes place. And after oxidation and reduction, what will happen? If you are taking NaCl as electrolyte, we will get Na in its pure form or metallic form, and chlorine gas will be liberated. And then if you are taking ZnCl2, what will happen there? Zinc, metal, and we will get chlorine. So thus it is found. And if there are two or more ions in it, and that depends upon it, the reduction or oxidation at the anode depends upon the reactivity of those ions present in the solution or the electrolyte. Okay, now let's see what is the difference between an anion and a cation. So anions are, cations. Obviously I told you Ka T, you can write it as a positive. Why am I saying it again and again? So that it will be registered in your mind. So cation, that positive charge ion, and anion will be obviously the negative charge. So what happens to the cation? Cation will migrate or move towards the cathode. See, because obviously positive opposite charges attract, so it is anion, cation is positive, cation will always move to the cathode, which is the negative electrode. Okay, and then anions migrate to the anode during electrolytes. Then what happens there to the cations? Cations are positive ones, right? Positive ones, what will do? It needs electron. It will gain electron and get reduced and become a neutral atom. And examples are given for cation is Na plus, Cl2 plus, Al3 plus. Okay, that is sodium ion, calcium ion and aluminum ion. That 3 plus 2 plus you have already learned. It is the valency. Okay. Now, anions lose electron too. Anions have got now extra electron. It will lose the electron to the anode and get oxidized and become a neutral atom. Example, if it is phosphoric acid, what are the anions formed? PO4 minus, 3 minus, then another is Cl minus, SO4 2 minus, OH minus are all the anions that might be present in various electrolytes. Okay, so those are the difference between, so we have learned the difference between electrolyte and non-electrolyte, strong electrolyte and weak electrolyte. What is the difference between an electrochemical cell and an electrolytic cell? Then we learned about the difference between a cathode and an anode. And then we learned about the difference between anion and cation. Now, already we have said losing of electrons is called as oxidation and gaining of electrons is known as reduction, right? Okay. We will learn more about this oxidation and reduction reaction right now. Let's see. So, a redox reaction. Oxidation and reduction reaction together we call it as a reduction reaction, redox reaction. That is what which happens in an electrolysis. And again, oxidation is called losing of electrons. Loss of electrons or addition of oxygen are all terms that we use for oxidation. And that happens PaO at anode. Example, if you take electrolysis of CuCl2, the chlorine ion Cl minus loses electron to form chlorine gas. Okay, so loss of electron happens at the anode and that is called the oxidation. So we can say that oxidation happens at the anode. Okay, then Where does the reduction happen? Reduction is called gaining of electrons, and gaining of electrons in negative cathode, reduction happens at the cathode, which is the negative electron, gaining of electrons. Obviously, negative electron should give extra electrons to something which is in need of electron, right? So Cu2 plus takes in 2 electrons and it gets reduced to its metal form. So, what happens to the ions? So, anions, positive ions, example chlorine, OH minus, move towards the anode and get oxidized. It's been explained once more. Okay, gets oxidized. Cations, which are positive ions like Cu2 plus H plus, move towards the cathode and get reduced. So, have you heard of this mnemonic that we used to learn about oxidation and reduction? Oil rig. That means oxidation is loss of electron and reduction is gaining of electron. Oil rig. Panic is the one word that earlier we learned, and from panic we have made pav, and pav is some kind of bun that govans eat. Okay, it's a little bit harder, but that is a staple food for govans. Every morning they will be having pav with mutton curry or keema and all those things. That is pav, P-A-O. It's not the bun, it is positive anode oxidation happens and negative cathode reduction happens, NCR. Okay then, and these are the things that we have to learn in relation to electrolysis. Okay. Now let's see what are the characteristics of electrolysis before going into dissociation, ionization and dissociation. What do we see? What are the characteristics of electrolysis? So, okay, let me make it a little more bigger. So, characteristics of electrolysis. As you can see, passage of electricity. Obviously, electricity is passed through an electrolyte. It causes the positive ion cations to migrate towards the cathode and negative ions anion to migrate towards the anode. So when you are sitting to study this, you just need to concentrate. You can't just think about this and that and write whatever you need. You need to concentrate and correctly you have to write. So before writing the sentence, we should know about panic and POW and NCR, also oil rig. Okay, and then you can correctly write down that sentence, and the negative ions will migrate towards the anode. Obviously, anode will migrate to anion, anode, cation, cathode, and then we will build up using the mnemonics. Okay, then as you have seen on the top, they were given the example CuCl2, and the ions present inside will be Cu2 plus Cl minus. Here there is 2 chlorine, so 2 Cl minus. Okay, so which is the anion here? Anion Cl minus. Which is the cation here? Cu2 plus. So at anode, what will happen at anode? Oxidation is happening. That means electron is loss of electrons happen. So what happens? Cl minus loses electron or minus 1 electron to give Cl. Here chlorine gas is evolved at the anode. So chlorine gas, it is a diatomic molecule. So what happens here? 2-chlorine ion releases 2 electrons at the anode to gain or to produce Cl2. Okay. So number of atoms, just it is 2 over here. And what about the other one? At cathode, what will happen then? At cathode, Cu2 plus will go there. It will add on 2 electrons are less over on Cu2 plus because its valency is 2. That is, how did it get valency 2? Because it has lost already when it was in a chemical bonding. It loses its electrons and becomes 2 plus. It gains here, reduction happens to get the Cu atom. So here also we can see that 2 electrons is gained at, so 2 electrons is added, comes out from the cathode. Here 2 electrons gets inside or goes into the anode. Right? Yes. So the second this thing says characteristic number 2, the number of electrons gained by the anode is equal to the number of electrons gained by the cathode. And the products of electrolysis are formed at the anode and cathode itself, since the exchange of electrons takes place only at the surface of the electrons. Where does the reaction take place? It does not take place in the electrolyte. It will take place. The product of electrolysis is formed at the anode or the cathode itself, since exchange of electrons takes place only at the surface of the electrons. Then hydrogen gas, only hydrogen gas or metals are liberated at the cathode, and hence they are called as electropositive. That we have already studied about electropositive and negative elements. The elements or metals which has the tendency to lose its electrons to gain an inert gas configuration are called electropositive. So losing of electrons, where does it happen? So these metals, Cu2 plus and all those things are called electropositive atoms. They go towards the negative and gains electron, and it is liberated over there. So only non-metals are liberated at the anode and they are called electronegative elements. Anode and negative elements moves towards the anode. Then, mass of substances produced at an electrode during electrolysis will be proportional to the quantity of electricity passing through the electrolyte. So, we do electroplating and all. So, while we are doing electroplating, if you want a thicker amount of metal deposit on the article, then what we will do, we just have to increase the quantity of electricity passing through the electrolyte. Okay, so we have discussed all these things. Again, we'll just discuss about it. So 7.1, the process of electrolysis is a redox reaction. Yes, we have discussed it very clearly. And NaCl, Na positive and Cl minus ions are formed. This will go to the cathode. At the cathode, it will gain 1 electron, and at the cathode NCR happens, reduction happens at the cathode, and Cl minus, which is the anion, will be moving to the anode, and at the anode it will lose an electron, PaO. Oxidation takes place at the anode. And there is AC and DC current. Only direct current is used while electrolysis is done, because electrolysis will not help. These AC current, alternating currents at current which moves like this, it will not work for electrolysis. So this was about in this section. Further we will learn about metallic conductors. You have already discussed about metallic conductors. So metals and which are, for example, sodium, not sodium, copper, gold, silver, on all are conductors of electricity. We will learn more about it in the next class. Okay, then see you. Hope you understood it. Everything you should need concentration while you are studying this chapter. And can you tell me if you are asked something? Can you tell me which is the positive and the negative electrode? What will you do? We will just remember about that panic situation, and from that we get positive is the anode and negative is the cathode. Negative, positive side of the terminal of the battery is connected to the anode, so anode is the positive electrode and negative side of the cathode is negative side of the battery is connected to the cathode, so cathode is the negative electron. So on that note, I am stopping my class. So hope you understood everything, and we'll see you in the next class with more about electrolysis. Thank you so much.